Have you ever looked into the materials and methods section of a paper and wish that it is simpler to read? You are not alone. Sometimes research papers are written in a really concise way and they are not really friendly for a user in the lab to implement exactly what they have done. For example, when you're about to repeat the same study in the lab, you wonder what exactly the PCR kit should you purchase? How long did they keep everything on ice? And was the sample safe to be stored at -20 or 80? Hi, this is Vera Chen from PhDcoffeetime. The last week we talked about how to look for scientific literature on the Web of Science. Today, I'd like to take you further into executing science and how to make sure they are reproducible using a research protocol. And if you like my type of topic, I make videos every week to support the PhD community out there. I know we are all feeling a little isolated, especially these days. Maybe we are in self-quarantine or we are doing a lot of lab work. So if you feel a little left out in your lab, please make sure to check out my other videos and they may give you some new ideas in making you a better researcher and some energy boost at a coffee break. A well-written protocol is the backbone of a high-performing lab. It makes sure that everything is reproducible. And if someone is turning over, like you have a short contract for an RA and you need to train someone new again, it reduces the time you need for training each person and it saves you money and time. Let's look at how to make a good research protocol so that you can have the most productivity in your research. Depending on the field of research you are in, science protocol may be something is required. For example, in the performance of clinical trials, every single procedure on how we treat the patients and how are we subjecting the patients to be tested, what are the evaluation criteria and duration of studies, has to be written in a protocol. However, in a science laboratory setting, this is a more flexible situation. You may end up being in a lab and something's been done for decades and all you have is a piece of paper inside an old logbook that someone has scribbled on. That's the situation I'd like to address in this video because we are now in a generation of team science. There is no Charles Darwin that works by themselves anymore. And I think it is the most fundamental skills that we all have to have as a scientist by writing a clear and reproducible protocol for internal use. Just bear in mind, even the COVID-19 on the news, every day confirmed cases increase, and behind the scenes, it cannot happen without a protocol. In fact, every country has set up their own protocol so that it's a standardized test across region. So if you have never written a protocol in your research, I hope this video is going to make you think about writing one for the procedures that's most fundamental to your research and something that you have to teach again and again to a new student, new postdoc. That will save you a ton of time. Let's go over what is important to be included in a research protocol. The structure of a protocol has to be clean and concise, and it's easy to read by the audience that are likely to be your next graduate student in the lab or a future postdoc or a technician that is going to help you do the work. So you can start with a background and rationale of why you're doing this work in a short paragraph, just a short one, but make sure you include the paper that if someone needs to look it up, they can go to the publication that is cited. And you will have bullet points to summarize what are the materials and environments required for your lab procedures, such as having ice, box of ice, and having sterilized equipment, autoclave. You can make them bullet points because the order is not essential. But when you have a chronological steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, then you will use numbered points as your chronological order depiction of how to do the work. In the protocol, you only need enough detail that's sufficient to repeat the procedure. For example, what are the part number of reagents, and what are the equipments that you need, and temperature and duration of each procedures. What's not necessary, for example, is what's the exact batch number of reagent that you used in your test. Those are the information you put in your logbook. But for a protocol, someone can repeat it in another country, they can repeat it in another years and decades. You have to decide what is essential to use. Like the exact brand of plastic box that is required for your gel may not be too necessary for the next user. They can decide what to do. Since this is a protocol for internal use, there's usually no formatting requirement. So you can be creative about what you put in that protocol. Sometimes you can take a photograph of the lab and make annotation on it. That way the next person can know how the setup is by just one glance. You save a lot of words. You can also include tables. For example, in my lab, when we do PCR, we have a table for calculating reagent and quantity of sample and how much we need to add to make the master mix. It reduces chances of error. There's also illustration that you can add to explain the background of the research or to make the protocol more understandable. Or you can put a figure that is useful from a paper that is communicative of your protocol. One thing you can consider is to have the last page as a printable and fillable part of the protocol. Something that the person can print out, write on it, and cut it out and put on logbook by just pasting it. For example, for me, I do PCR reaction at lab, and we will write all the master mix quantity and sample number, and we calculate how much 10% pipetting loss volume, and those are all clear, and you don't have to make it up every time by imagination, and it saves time. And in the end, there's also a 96 well plate printed, and you can write how many samples and how many replicates, and you will see at a glance by visualizing your data each time as you have each experiment. This is some thoughts that you can innovate in new protocol and make sure that it's user-friendly for the next person. So sometimes if you innovate a protocol, you can also consider submitting it to a published platform. That includes Bioprotocol and JoVE. You also can search protocols on these published platforms so that you don't need to reinvent the wheel if someone has already developed a protocol. And you can improve it by reading other people's work. And if you're a nosy scientist like me, you can also go to the link in the description box to check out the PCR reaction protocol that is written by different countries for testing the COVID-19. It marks how important it is to have protocols. If you enjoy my content, please make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Comment below whether you write protocol for your research. See you next time. Thank you for watching. If you are at your office and you are afraid that you will touch your face, I think it's a good measure to prevent yourself from scratching. It's a reminder that you're not going to scratch your nose without washing your hands. I think this will be the new fashion trend in 2020.